Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2018 film Ready Player One. This is a film I wasn't really that sold on. I never read the book, so I can't really be the judge of whether or not this is a good adaptation of the novel. But I was kind of curious to see how they're going to incorporate all of these pop culture elements into a movie and actually create a story around all of these callbacks that is something that is worth watching, let alone remembering. And sadly, the film failed to do that. And that is one of the film's biggest flaws is it has a story that is just completely forgettable. It's cliched, and that isn't necessarily uh, an automatic fail from me. But it's just the thing is it's not just the fact that it's cliched. It's so bland and generic. There's nothing really new to this story. It's essentially Who Framed Roger Rabbit meets Tron with a little bit of Willy Wonka, like that, and maybe the Last Starfighter. There really isn't anything in this story that is really that unique, let alone anything that really puts a new spin on an old concept. It's the same kind of stuff you've seen done before in a million other movies. And that might be okay if it had characters that could make up for it, but it doesn't. Ready Player One has characters that suck. They are lifeless, they're flavorless, they're interchangeable. They are complete cannon fodder. There's nothing to these characters. They're not memorable. They don't leave an impression, especially the lead, Tye Sheridan. He's not even Kurt McKinney in terms of a level of a character. That's saying a lot because Kurt McKinney sucks in a film like No Retreat, No Surrender. See, this film is trying so hard to be a throwback to the 80s and have all these 80s things and have all these 80s type of characters, but you have a lead who has no charisma. Might as well be a giant saltine cracker. There's nothing to this guy, and it absolutely cripples the film. You know what a lot of classic 80s films had in common? They had great charismatic leads. Back to the Future, you had Michael J. Fox. Gremlins, you had Zach Galligan. The Karate Kid, you had Ralph Macchio. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you had Matthew Broderick. Last Starfighter, you had Lance Guest, who, yes, was a lot more charismatic and likable and more of a cool character, somebody that you could root for, somebody that you could relate to, somebody that you wanted to see win versus Tye Sheridan. This guy might as well have been just a computer generated character himself. I mean, really, he had that much of an impact on me as an audience member. So the film is also directed by Steven Spielberg, and I almost want to do directed in air quotes, directed by Steven Spielberg, because majority of the film is takes place in this computer generated world called the Oasis. So I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg didn't direct those sequences. So he ended up directing a few live action sequences, and honestly, they're wholly unimpressive. The direction in these live action sequences is just about as well done or as well directed as anything that I would see on the Sci-Fi Channel in terms of a Sci-Fi Channel original series. I would not. If you told me that a director who directed nothing but TV movies directed the live action sequences for Ready Player One, I would not be surprised at all, because that's how generic. That's how completely interchangeable, completely bland, how completely trite and trote and not trote. Trote's not really a word, but I mean rote the direction is. There's nothing at all that is remotely worth praising about the direction in the live action sequences. It's hard to believe it's even Spielberg who directed those scenes. There aren't even any typical Spielbergian type of moments in these sequences. This direction is so flat in those scenes that I honestly feel that Steven Spielberg has lost his touch. It's like what happened when you see Walter Hill directing movies nowadays, or when you saw George Lucas try to do something. Well, he hasn't done anything in a while, but really, that's what it reminded me of. Like Walter Hill directing, hasn't done anything in a while, and he does it, and it's just really lame and flat. And that's exactly what I felt about the live action direction here. The direction in the CGI animated sequences was better than the direction in the live action sequences by Steven Spielberg, who is considered to be one of the best directors ever. I'm going to stand by my belief here. The last great film he directed, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's great, but the last film he directed that I liked was War of the Worlds. And I will definitely take something like Minority Report over this any day of the week. It just, I don't know. It's like, did he just do this for a paycheck? Did he just do this as a favor? Like, because he's producing it and Amblin Entertainment and all of that, and maybe he liked the book and just wanted to direct it. I don't know. There just isn't an ounce of passion in Spielberg's direction here. It's completely non-existent. It's like he just did it because he could. It gave him something to do, which is not something that a director like Spielberg should be doing. Oh, I'm just going to direct this movie just because I can. Oh, it gives me something to do, so I'm not completely bored. Adds another film to my resume. It's just one of those, it's like, it could really, honestly, you could have had a younger, up-and-coming director who might have honestly given the film more. Would have brought more to the film than Spielberg. Spielberg is just a name at this point. And it's sad. It really is. The cast, there really isn't anyone in this cast that stands out. Tye Sheridan as Percival, Wade Watts, lead character. He's fucking terrible. There's nothing to this guy. I think he played, and I know I've said that, but I'm going to continue to say that because he's basically just a whole pile of nothing. He's basically just the air, okay? He's just an invisible man. There's nothing there, nothing to see here, just absolutely nothing. There's no talent in terms of acting. There's no charisma. There's no presence. Olivia Cooke as Artemis, she was okay, but her character was so poorly written and so one-dimensional that there really wasn't much to her. Part of me is wondering whether or not it's really the actor's fault that these characters are so bad, because the writing gives them nothing to work with. So of course they're nothing because they have nothing. They've been given nothing. I mean, you could have some really talented, charismatic actors, and if they were given this to work with, they would probably deliver the same type of quality. Ben Mendelsohn, who plays the villain Nolan Sorrento. First off, the guy's last name is the name of a fucking car. The Kia Sorrento, do you remember that? Yeah, it's very intimidating. With your villain, his last name is a fucking Sorrento. Does he drive around in a Kia Sorrento? Does he do that as well? Is he a co-owner of Kia? But he's a CEO, and this guy, you don't even have a memorable villain. You don't even have a villain that you love to hate in this movie. You just hate this guy. He's just the type of douchebag who you know, you don't like being around him. You want to see him fall, but you don't take much joy in it. You don't revel in it. It's not somebody like Clarence Boddicker from RoboCop. It's not someone like Dick Jones from RoboCop or something like that. Ronnie Cox from Total Recall. You know, it's like this guy. He's like a lamer version of the principal from The Breakfast Club. I'm just imagining other actors that would have done such a better job with this character. Dennis Quaid, because he can pull off pretty much any role. Michael Keaton would have been fantastic. Can you imagine Michael Keaton in this role? He plays a smarmy douchebag better than anybody. He's so great at playing an asshole. He would be so perfect for this character. Way better than Ben Mendelsohn. Lena Waithe plays one of the high tech, the high five members, and longtime friend of Parzival's, Wade Watts' character. And there's this whole thing where in the game she plays a guy, but in reality she's a girl. They didn't really do that much with it, and part of me, I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. They don't really try to make it a preachy statement or anything, but it was just one of those. I was like, okay, all right. TJ Miller plays like this mercenary guy, and he's miscast. It doesn't work. Simon Pegg plays a curator, and some guy named Ogden Morrow, and there's supposed to be this twist about the curator being some other guy, and you can tell it's Simon Pegg, so they did a really bad job covering that up. Mark Rylance plays James Halliday. The actor is fine, but his performance here is just weird. It's just strange. It's off. I don't know what's going on here. It's like he's trying to play Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation or something, with a few chips missing. I don't really. I didn't get the approach they went with here. Maybe they're trying to go with an eccentric guy, an eccentric genius, maybe with autistic tendencies. I don't know. Either way, I don't think it worked out that well. Then you have like Philip Zhao as Shoto. Zhu is another one of the friends of Wade. There's nothing to that guy. Neither is there Daito Win Morisaki. Then you have a few other actors and actresses, but mainly that's the main cast. Out of the high five people, there's only like 3 of them that really get any extended screen time or any sort of character development. And even the character development they do get is very limited. Most of it's given to this Tye Sheridan guy, and there really isn't a lot there. It's just your typical, oh, he lives in a shitty household in the future, an overcrowded population, he's the hero or whatever, and he finds solace in outside of the real world or whatever. Like, there's not much to this. I mean, I'm just going to keep using that and keep repeating that because it's true. There really is not much to the character development. It's pretty much non-existent. And when it is there, there's just, I'm just trying to, it's kind of hard. Yeah, there's excuse me, sorry. It's very sparse. It's a very sparse amount of character development, and when it is there, it does not leave a lot of impact. It's weak. It's weak. It's honestly a perfect way to describe majority of the film. It's weak, except for a few cool scenes. It was nice seeing the Iron Giant show up. The Kroll reference is really cool. But there were other things. I mean, there were some nice creative moments. Like, I love the sequence when they go inside The Shining. When they go inside the film The Shining, and they're trying to find one of the other keys. And I thought that was really creative. That was really inventive. And I wish there was more of that in the film. Because other than that sequence, the car race in the beginning was such a fucking mess. In terms of the editing, in terms of just everything going on all at once. It was utter chaos. And it was hard to keep track of all the racers or of all the other cars, the famous cars that were in there. So it was one of those that was like, I didn't really care for that because it was just a fucking mess. It was like, you know what? I thought Robot Chicken did a better job in their Cannonball Run parody in one of their early seasons when they had all these other famous pop culture cars in a race. The one where Ponch and John, Headless Ponch won the race. I mean, over everybody else. Like, I thought that was a lot more fun than the car race that was in the movie. I mean, there were some nice little nods there. I mean, it's cool to see the DeLorean again. It was nice to see the light cycle from Tron. It was cool to see the old Batmobile, although I would have rather have seen the Batmobile from the 1989 Batman film, because I honestly think that's way cooler than the 60s Batmobile. Um, and then you had other things like King Kong and a T-Rex. So I mean, yeah, all right, cool, fine. And then the other bits of action, like there's a decent little bit here and there, like in the club where Artemis using a assault rifle from Aliens, and uh, Percival dressed up like Buckaroo Banzai, and a few other things, and then the climactic battle at the end. But the climactic battle at the end was a clusterfuck. There was just so much fucking shit on the screen. I couldn't keep track of any of it. There were like thousands of different characters, including the fucking Ninja Chuds from the Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles movies. I'm like, this is supposed to be homage to the 80s, and you got the fucking Ninja Turtles from the shitty modern Ninja Turtles movies. I have no idea why they did that. Like you didn't have the Ninja Turtles from the 80s cartoon, or the ones from the 90s movie or something, or someone that was kind of a mix between the two. No, let's have the fucking Ninja Chuds. That's great. The you know too much nasty taints on my screen. Wonderful. RoboCop was in it for like one scene in the corner and did nothing. So at least they didn't use the remake version, but still, like, I'm supposed to automatically like give the film a thumbs up and be like, "Wow, this movie's great," because RoboCop was in it for like 2 seconds in the background. I mean, it's like, I mean, there were some like, yeah, there were some admittedly inventive bits here and there. The prank that Artemis pulls on Percival, where she dresses up as Goro, and then there's a chest burster that pops out of his chest. That was cool. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's like, oh, that was cool. There's a Gundam that fights a Mecha Godzilla. Oh, that's cool. But at the same time, it's like, it's empty. It's totally empty. It rings hollow. It rings so hollow because these characters suck. The story sucks. It's like a souped up version of the Page Master almost. But instead of trying to find 3 books to get out of there, it's and make things right, it's 3 keys. And even the guy, there's a guy that is the one that's handing the keys to the players. He looks like the Page Master. I mean, he's got a long flowing beard and everything. I mean, he might as well be voiced by Christopher Lloyd. I mean, it might as well be the same fucking character. So, it's just one of those things. The stakes, they never feel that high because I'm not invested in the characters or the story. The film is way too long. It's over 2 hours. It's 140 minutes. It drags its ass on the ground multiple times throughout the running time because the characters suck. The story sucks. It's hard to get invested in much of anything. And it's one of those films that is shockingly below average for something that's trying to be such a throwback, a homage, a tribute to the 80s. It sure as hell didn't seem to know what made the 80s movies so great. I mean, it's such a superficial tribute to the 80s. It's like they didn't really know what actually made those films tick. And what made films like Back to the Future, The Last Starfighter, and so on and so forth so much fun and so great and such classic films. They you know what they had in common? They had good stories and good characters, which this film has none of. So that doesn't really. All the cool visuals in the world don't save the film. They don't make the movie good. But I have to admit, like I liked certain sequences. The Shining sequence. I would love to see a movie, an entire film that's just about people entering different movies and stuff like that. That would be interesting. I would love to see that. That would be really cool. The Chucky cameo was fun. Fucking Chucky. The guy's line delivery though was not the best. But I mean, Chucky kicked more ass and did more in this that was actually worth mentioning or praising than anything in any of the Child's Play films since Child's Play 3, which is pathetic, but it's true. But I mean, yeah, it was cool to see Chucky. You know, the Freddy, you saw a Freddy Krueger one earlier, but it was the damn fucking remake version. Probably because they used the same skin from the Mortal Kombat game. Uh, I think the same happened with Jason too. Is use the same skin from Mortal Kombat or so on and so forth. And the editing is so jarring at times, like when you have all these different characters and all these different pop culture references, and you can't keep track of them all. I mean, this is a film that I wouldn't mind maybe getting on home video later, just so I can see some of the references I might have missed. But then again, I'm pretty sure once this gets released on home video, somebody's going to release something on YouTube that's just an edit of all those sequences, and they're going to zoom in or have an arrow that points to the certain characters. So then you don't even need to even bother buying the film on Blu-ray or anything like that, because I'm pretty sure the clips are going to be online somewhere, or there's going to be pictures that are going to point out exactly what reference is here and what reference it is and where it is and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's just one of those films, the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I didn't like it. It doesn't really, it didn't leave a lasting impression on me. It's just nostalgia porn. It's nostalgia porn, the movie. It's nostalgia, ready, set nostalgia. Ready, it's, that's really the majority of the film. There were some nice things, like the Zemeckis Cube playing Robert Zemeckis' score from Back to the Future. Some nice references to other films like Silent Running and so on and so forth, which I was surprised to see. But overall, it's a total misfire. It's game over. It's a film that is a game that I don't want to play again. It's a movie I don't have a desire to watch again, and it's a film that I really don't have much else to say about it. I mean, there are other things that I could mention. The music by Alan Silvestri had its moments, but overall it was disappointing because, unlike a lot of his other scores, there really wasn't a lot to this score that really stuck with me, that I really remembered or really made me feel that much. The cinematography by Janusz Kaminski, really not impressive in the slightest. The editing by Michael Kahn and Sarah Brochar, could have edited it out 20, 30, 40 minutes easily. The film barely keeps my interest when it's in the Oasis, because just to see the visuals and everything. The visual effects are good. They should be. The film cost $175 million to make. But yeah, but when the film transitions away from the Oasis, it's dog shit. It sucks. It is so fucking shitty. It's astonishing. You don't care. You're like, go back to the Oasis. This shit sucks. This is boring. This is bland. This is tiresome. I've seen better storytelling on Nickelodeon or on the Disney Channel. It's one of those things that just like, ugh. It's just shoestring storytelling. It's a perfect way to put it with this film's story. I mean, the script by Zach Penn and Ernest Cline. I guess Ernest Cline wrote the book, and so apparently he helped with the screenplay too. Should have done a better job. I don't know who's to blame, the guy who wrote the book or Zach Penn. Oh, Zach Penn, the guy who... Okay. This is the guy who wrote Elektra and The Last Stand. Yeah, that was a great choice. Hire the guy who wrote Elektra and X-Men The Last Stand to write your adaptation of Ready Player One. Bad move, bad form, bad call. And then the ending. The ending is this weird thing where Simon Pegg shows up and there's this weird, it's supposed to be funny, I guess. That's another thing the film didn't do well, the humor. I don't remember a single joke from this film. Nothing made me laugh. It was just one of those films that was just, it was trying to be funny at times, but none of the jokes ever worked. And then the ending it's this preachy bullshit of, well, you should just get out of your basement and stop playing games and just get away from the oasis and get a life and start, enjoying things outside of the game, which I get it, I understand, and that's not necessarily a bad message. It's just poorly thought out and poorly handled in this movie. It's just poorly handled. It comes across as forced. It comes across as like, well, what the hell is the point? I mean, they went through all of this, sacrificed all of that, and did all this shit just for you to give them a moral lesson of don't play too much video games. It is like, fucking come on. Like, what is this? But anyway, there's some like it's so out of touch. It's like some ass backwards ancient film when it comes to its philosophy. Like maybe it was a satire of 80s films and how they sometimes have like a lesson like that at the end. I don't know, but either way, it didn't work. So yeah, the script, serious mixed bag. Some cool concepts, some nice references here and there. But they didn't bother to write characters that were worth a damn or write a story that was engaging, or at least consistently engaging. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Ready Player One, except if I were to rate it out of 5 stars, I give it 2 out of 5. Below average. Other than some cool visuals and some nice callbacks and some decent bits of the score here and there, the film is utterly forgettable. In one ear, out the other, in your eyes, out your ass. Anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts. That's my review of Ready Player One. I hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.